one. The people have questions. You need to give them the answers. Are you ready? Perfect. I'm Katie. This is Laugh Cry DIY. I'm matching my palm trees. And I have answers to all of your burning DIY and design questions. I recently did an AMA video where I invited you guys to ask me anything about anything. And you asked many fun questions, and you guys also asked a lot of DIY and design questions that I could not fit into that video. So I thought today we'd sit down, we'd have a chat, and I would go through 10 specific DIY and design decor questions to give you guys my decor perspective, my DIY hacks, and my life tips to outrun the cops. Okay, first question. What are your go-tos, your must-dos, your favorite and best hacks that make your DIY projects come out looking like a professional did it versus like you tried your best and it's obviously homemade and not in the cute way? Okay, wow, what a triggering question. The reason things look DIY is often because they look poorly constructed or not well made, or they look very incomplete, right? So you see paint drips or like brush marks or like uneven seams. So generally you need to think about three things: materials, construction, and presentation. So for materials, first things first, you want to avoid using anything that is like obviously crafty school project stuff, right? So try to avoid plastic beads, chunky glitter, pipe cleaners, kind of those obvious materials. Number two, construction. This is such a big thing. Classic DIY is like an applique falling off, a little part of it coming apart where like the hot glue popped apart. So whether you're like wood gluing or stapling or sewing something together, like make sure it is bonded correctly. There is an amazing site called This to That, which was created, I believe, by like prop art director guys. And it is a thing where you can put in one material and put in another material, and it will tell you what glue it needs to bond them. So for example, you can find out like, how do I, put cloth to foam? And it is a total game changer. You also need to make very straight lines. That may mean you have to measure 5 times and cut once. You might have to cut 3 times because you messed up the first 2. Now, once you have like your item constructed and like all together, you really need to like pay attention to the details and finishing things. Which brings me to the last point of presentation, right? You've built the cake and now you need to frost it. You need to fill in spaces and gaps with things like spackle. Maybe you need a piece of trim to like cover the seam on a weird lampshade. Or you need to like hand paint in some wood grains so that people don't notice that you used wood filler. Also, a big thing, paint the back, the bottom, the inside. That is such a classic thing, right? Like you turn something around and the whole back is like janky as hell. Which, by the way, if they turned models around in fashion shoots, we would see that the back of everything is janky as hell. Also, you have to triple check your paint jobs because I promise you have missed a spot. Also, add a protective top coat. So basically, like consider yourself a serial killer trying to cover your tracks. I will drop a link below for my Amazon storefront of like my favorite go-to DIY supplies. But these are my fave things I use that do not fail me. And that is my level, my chalk pencils, which are easy to wipe off, fine grained sandpaper, super sharp box cutter blades, a ruler, staple gun, spackle, wood filler, and number 1, Gorilla Hot Glue. Gorilla Hot Glue, Gorilla Hot Glue. Also, you may not realize it, but it is very important to plan your projects out and to have all the supplies you need nearby, because often what will happen is like you won't have everything you need, you'll have painted something halfway, you run to try to find the thing you need, you bring it back, half of that has dried, you've painted over it, the color doesn't match. So it's important to know your supply list and know the project phases that you're gonna do. For me, prep is something I consider a part of the DIY process. So I will often, like night before or something, I will put on a podcast and I will just assemble all my little items. On that note, have a project bin. I'm telling you, if you're making a quilt or if you're fixing a lamp, like have a bin that has all the stuff you need in it. And also, if you abandon your project halfway through, it makes it a lot easier to like get back to it if you know everything's corralled in the same space. Also, be prepared for mistakes and moments of hell. I always have like rags or paper towels or something nearby because I know that I need to wipe up paint, that glue might have seeped out and I gotta get that. I need a damp rag to wash my hands. So it really never ends. All right, question 2. When you're planning a DIY, how long realistically do you go from idea to finished product? I seem to be stuck at the idea and planning phase, but never seem to just pull the trigger and start my project. Now, interestingly, I'm so surprised, but one of the most common things I hear from people is that they are afraid. Afraid to DIY, afraid to decorate, afraid to play with color. And let's be real, and emotional and vulnerable. I know you guys feel that way because you're all perfectionists at heart and you want it to be perfect, and if it's not perfect, then you're gonna shame spiral. But guys, let's remember, this is just about decor. There is no reason to be afraid. Now, I can't give you a specific start to finish timeline because obviously every project is different. Write your list, write the project phases, and then estimate the time for the project phases, and then double it. But that said, it can be really overwhelming to try to tackle everything at once. So even if you have to break that up into like one weekend a month for 6 months straight, do that. I'm also aware that if you are looking at something that's going to be a very big investment of money, of course it's terrifying to be like, oh, I'm gonna wallpaper a whole bedroom. So instead, I say do little things first. If you are like too scared to go all in on a wallpapered room, put the print on a pillow. And so when I am going to do things, I always mock it up. I always Photoshop it. That way I can play with colors and patterns, mix things around. I mean, look, I literally just mocked up a piece for this weekend. You guys can't see it yet, but it's good to play around before you commit. I'm also a fan of experimenting and playing around and doing temporary things before you commit to the full thing. So for example, if you're not sure if you want to paint your cabinets green, I would buy a $10 roll of white contact paper. I would buy a $5 sample of the paint I want. I would paint that contact paper, and then I would paper 2 or 3 cabinets and live with it for a month. And also, you can just buy and return things, assuming they have a good return policy. But like, I've bought like 7 different rugs. I have returned 13 different pillowcases. And last thing I'll say to encourage you to do your stuff. One of the toxic side effects in capitalism is like intentionally disempowering people to not be able to do things for themselves so that they have to spend their money on outsourced labor or products. So fight the system. What are your tips for styling a dresser top when you want to reduce clutter, but you're also a cluttery bitch who loves tchotchkes, crystals, etc.? Oh baby, one word, trays. You can have tons of stuff on your bedside table, on your dresser, whatever. If you corral it in a tray, it like instantly looks more put together. Also, it makes it so much easier to like take things off and wipe them down and put them back than like taking a billion bottles off your dresser. Also, this same thing goes to anything under a sink anywhere. Instead of having all your cleaning bottles like shoved under the sink, like just get one basket that you can take in and out. But back to the dresser, other things you can do, think of height and how to kind of use like vertical space more. So you might actually get like a thrifted vintage cake stand tray. That could like elevate some things so you can put more things underneath it and it doesn't spread across the whole place. Or you might want to like stack some books, put something on top of that. Just saying different levels and like corralling things. Also, since we're talking dressers, just think of other ways you might get stuff up on the wall around it. So like hooks for scarves or jewelry, things like that. Anything you can do to like get stuff up and off the surface if you don't need it, that can be helpful too. Also, sometimes some things are dual duty. So I've seen, for example, like a lamp that has a base that kind of has a divided tray in it. Oh, and another like pro life tip hack. When you have flat surfaces, you tend to get collections of things that you're just dumping there, right? I'm a big fan of the junk basket, where basically like have a designated place where you just throw all that stuff in. You don't need to deal with it now, but you know that that's where you will go when you need to pay the bill or whatever. Next. Oh, this is drama. Are you guys ready? Strap in. A dear childhood friend of mine gifted me a very large piece of art from a home goods store, and it was nowhere near my style, but I definitely pretended that it was, and I kept it in my trunk for 6 months. Have you ever received a gift for your home or otherwise that was totally not your style? And if so, what did you do, or what would you do in that scenario? Oh yeah. And because of this, when I gift people things, I always give them something that is intended to disappear. A candle meant to be burnt down, a bath bomb meant to be dissolved, something food that's supposed to be eaten. That way I can either pretend that they ate it or they gave it away. Okay, so if you don't want to keep this thing and you want to be gracious and you have a healthy relationship with this person based on honesty and trust, I think that you can just say like your style is changing, or that you're really trying to divest and get rid of things, and that you just haven't been able to find the right place for it in your home, and that you wanted to give it to someone who would really, really love and use and appreciate it. If you have a very dysfunctional relationship grounded in like guilt, and therefore you feel like you have to keep it, then I would say, can you adapt the art to make it more your style? Could you paint over portions of it and be like, dude, I just made this custom piece? Or for example, if I was given a print that I didn't like, what I would do is I would put it in a much larger frame, and I would print out, or I would use a piece of like wallpaper or something, a bold print that I liked, as the matting, and then you could put a little piece of the print over it, and then that way when you looked at a framed print, you would see the pattern you like and like very little of the art, just saying. But for me, if I've received like a vessel or something, piece of decor that I didn't totally dig and I felt too bad to get rid of it, then it became like something that held pens in a closet. But I think I can speak for all of us when I say like we've all been there and we're just sending thoughts and prayers your way. All right, moving on to my cat people. Somebody asked me, do I have any ideas for designer cat houses or like cat stand ideas? So I am not a cat behaviorist, but I will talk about cat owning from my perspective. So first, confirm that your cat is a tree dweller that wants to be up high. Cats are either tree dwellers or they are bush dwellers where they hide under things. And a lot of cat owners get excited when they get a cat and they want to buy all these things, but you don't necessarily need to if they're not going to use it. So much cat furniture is expensive and it's an eyesore. It also has like a lot of things that they don't necessarily like need all in one place. For my house, I decided not to do a cat tree. I decided to mix it up. I did cat shelves on the wall. That way they were like really blended into the wall, and I could use wall space instead of floor space to provide what she needs. I also think, and this is my perspective, that you can like mix it up. So on one side of the room, I have cat shelves, and then aside from that, I have a little cat scratcher. That way she has to get up off her ass and go do different things, and it just keeps her more entertained, in my opinion. Try to look for something that's like in the color or scheme or vibe of your house. For example, this is my cat scratcher. I mean, it's terrible and we'll probably need to fix that soon on the channel, but it's a little green cactus and it looks so cute against my bright pink couch. There are also lots of DIYs for like adding sisal to like create scratch pads on different things or pieces of furniture, so you can definitely get creative. Next question. Can you break down how to use a tape measure effectively, like with all of the little measurements in between the inch markers? Now, first things first, I will say when you buy a tape measure, buy one that has everything pre-marked. It just makes your life a lot easier. But if you're feeling like an old school fella and you want to know how to decipher it, this is a tape measure. It's got a little clip, also got a little like stay lock, right? So that it stays. Get one with a stay lock. Here's the first thing you should know about them that a lot of people don't tell you is that on every tape measure, marked on it is actually how wide the tape measure is. This one is 2 3/4 inches. So they do this so that when you're butting up against something and you're measuring it like against the wall, you don't have to like try to figure this out. You just like do that and then add 2 3/4 inches. So a lot of people don't know that, but could help you. Okay, back to the actual like tick marks on it. I'm gonna assume you know 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch, 1 inch. For the purpose of this, we're gonna look at the next tier down. These are your eighths. And then the next tier down from that, those are your 16ths. And as you count things out, they are all odd numbers. So the eighths tier is 1/8, 3/8, 5/8, 7/8. So 1 3 5 7, 1 3 5 7. Then you're getting into your 16ths and it's still odd. So it is 1/16, 3/16, 5/16, 7/16, all the way down. Like I said, get a measuring tape that has it on there and it'll make your life easier. Next, we're gonna get into some kitchen drama. So I'm facing a DIY challenge with my 1984 kitchen. I have a small budget, so I can't replace the cabinets, but I'm really nervous about getting in over my head with painting them. I'd love to hear your tips, tricks, and advice for painting cabinets, or really any kind of hardwood. Cabinets can feel very overwhelming for good reason. They are not hard, they are just tedious to do. So here are the general steps you're gonna take. 1, you need to clean them all first. They have tons of grease, they have tons of dirt on them, and that is going to make your paint chip or peel off if you don't handle it. I'll link an article below, but like there's a lot of different cleaners people use, but really you're wanting something that's like a heavy degreaser so that there is no grease or residue on the cabinets. Then you're going to take painter's tape and you are going to label every single cabinet. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. Next, you need to remove the hardware and you need to take the cabinets off. This is so important. Listen to me. These are the things that no one will tell you except for Mama Katie. That's weird. Okay, every hinge you take off, you need to save all the hardware in the same baggie. You need to label it with the cabinet it goes to. A lot of people think like they're all hinges and they're all screws and they're all the same size, so they're good. But this is the thing. Your cabinets have been fighting gravity for like years, right? And that's why they might swoop or hang or like be a little off. If you try to put a different screw back in, you are likely to mess up the hanging with it because the screw that was in there was used to being in it. It's probably at a slight angle and it knows how to hold it the way it was. So it's like, keep your hardware with the same door. They've been together a long time. They don't want to see new people. Like, just keep them together and you will likely have a lot easier time putting them all back when they need to be put back. Okay, then you're going to take your cabinets to wherever you're painting them. You have to sand, do 100, 150 grit, whatever. You want to rough it all up. Then you need to prime. People think they don't need to prime and they need to prime. Now, a lot of people think that like all paint is the same at the store. No, ma'am. I would go for very specific cabinet paint, which often cures a little bit more like a hard enamel. You can talk to your paint guys. They'll lead you in the right direction. So you need to prime them with your primer, let them dry, and you should really sand in between each coat of paint if you want the smoothest, most beautiful finish. This time you're gonna sand with a higher level, like a 220, 320. That's a finer grain sandpaper that's gonna smooth things out as you go. Now, when it comes to actually painting, some people use like spray guns, some people use rollers. You got to get a roller that is meant to be used with your paint. And I think the big thing with cabinets and all furniture specifically is like too much paint in your roller is gonna... You want to tell them some things? Okay. Too much paint in your roller is going to really result in a lot of drips on your cabinets, especially around corners. Oh, it's so frustrating. So go slowly, do thin coats, let them dry, inspect them, sand them down. That way you can like spot your imperfections and clean up as you go, as opposed to just like slopping on paint and it's just gonna be a freaking mess. Once they're all dried and cured, you can put everything back the way it was supposed to be. And also read your labels. A lot of times cabinet paint will say like, you know, this needs X amount of time to fully cure. And sometimes it'll say, let these dry with your doors open, because if you are putting like newly painted cabinets side by side and they're not totally dry yet, when you open them, there's gonna be chips and stuff. So I hope you feel confident to tackle your cabinets. And if you do, again, please send me pictures, people, or just send me pictures of your animals. I don't care. Okay, next we're following that up with another kitchen question. This person is asking, what color should I paint my kitchen walls? And let me add a visual aid so we can talk through what we're dealing with. Okay, her walls are mossy green. Her cabinets are an orange oak. She has creamy yellow tile with an ochre trim, which works with her orange cabinets. And she loves color. Her nearby rooms are mango yellow and barn red. So she's not afraid of a hot dog palette. And her windows are southwest, so she has plenty of sun. So what color should she paint her walls in this kitchen that's gonna work with everything? Because of the light and the orange oak, we have like a lot of orangey, warm stuff. And sometimes you can really lean into that and go into more like earth tones or terracotta and just like go full vibe. But if that mossy green can start to feel a little bit like heavy over time, I understand that. So maybe you want something that feels a little bit like more fun, more joyful, but could also complement the other colors around. I'm gonna pitch you this blue color. This is like a light, kind of almost teal, kind of aqua blue. You want a lot of tint, so it's like much lighter. And this might seem like an unexpected color considering the other colors in your area, but look at this color palette. It actually kind of works. You said your kitchen is from the 40s, and honestly, this feels like a very kind of like vintage color combo. Like I can almost see like vintage tins and like grandma in her apron. So you can do that. Or black. No. Okay, switching gears entirely. What are your thoughts on a witch or a pagan home? I would like to see what you would incorporate, if anything, not like a Halloween thing, but a true pagan or craft practitioner. This is such a unique question, and what I'm gonna say may extend to other faith-based practices or something that you care about in your life. So here is how I would approach a witchy pagan home. Being a pagan is really worshiping nature, nature-inspired elements, so I would infuse a home with that. Like primitive furniture, I would do like live edge coffee table. I would do baskets, things that are woven, a lot of like items that would be woven from the earth basically. I would look at all the animals that I feel really a kinship to. So for me, I love leopards, I love leopard print, I love peacocks, and therefore I would look at the color palette of a peacock and infuse that into my space. Some people decorate with actual animals. Dita Von Teese has a full taxidermied tiger in her house. Also, you might want to think of interesting ways to kind of honor the beauty of nature. This is so cool. One of my subscribers sent me this card. It's actually a spider web. You can do spider web art by actually spray painting an existing web and then like scooping it up with black paper. And it is like actually beautiful. Like a framed series of these, so pretty. Anyways, also tons of furs, sheepskin, fur, faux fur, whatever. But you just want to mix in all these different textures to make a really like exciting space. Now, of course, you need elements like fire, a fireplace, a hearth. I've talked a lot about how I built my own fake fireplace, and you should do candles, but also again, think very natural elements. So instead of a Target candle, you want to do like beautiful beeswax taper candles or something. Obviously, I would do plants on plants on plants on plants. Obviously, your kitchen, you got to go full apothecary. Clear jars to store like grains and beans and beautiful herbs and things. If you haven't seen it, check out my mini apothecary cabinet I made. And this is what I think may relate to other faith-based practices or whatever. I would create mini like altars or insets or niches. You could kind of create a tray altar. You can place them all around on a bookshelf, on your coffee table. Like it's just beautiful little moments. Okay, and lastly, no matter your religious practice, your front door area, hallway, entry of your home is very sacred no matter what. So think about around your front door, how you can make an experience when you walk in, whether that's making sure there's fresh flowers on a little side table, having a nice diffuser or essential oil, a nice rug that you put your feet on, things like that. If you use any of these ideas, please send pics to me because I love to creep. You know that. And now we've come to our last question, and I'm very excited to answer this because I think this will be relevant for a lot of you guys. So, how do I make my IKEA white office furniture, aka the Billy bookcase with matching white desk and Alexa drawers, work with my Anthropologie Grandma Maximalist music room? I'm hoping you don't say paint them because that would be so much work for me, but I would really love your thoughts on blending IKEA with maximalism. Ugh. Thank you for asking the question that I needed, that I wanted, that I prayed for. So here's the thing about IKEA furniture. It is super minimalist, super clean lines, boxy, but the best part about this furniture is that it is so simple. You're basically working with like a little piece of clay that you can mold however you want. So when we're talking maximalism, we need to think about mixing up colors, patterns, textures. And there's a few ways you can do that. First things first, I'm going to talk about your Alexa drawers. These are very common. They're kind of these like filing cabinet style drawers. There are so many great tutorials on putting on false fronts for these. You could do wood, contact paper over that to fake the wood. I love this one, adding cane backing to it. That brings in such a fun boho texture that is like very Anthropologie. You could also even like do a frame and then fill it with like a woven fabric. That would give it like color and texture that could like vibe in your room. And again, guys, you'd be surprised how many interesting contact papers they make now that like look like wood grain, look like they're woven, look like caning. So there's a lot of like easy peel and stick ways to do that. If you're doing fake fronts, definitely add hardware, especially for like the old school vibe. Now, for your Billy bookcase, there are so many incredible Billy bookcase hacks. IKEA is making more things that you can like add on to these. But my favorite Billy hack that I think would be really good for you is to add the little faux arch onto it. But I know that requires painting. If you don't want to do that, add some detailed trim to it. So like this little bead trim, you could easily glue it onto the sides and it'll just give it that more texture, maybe feel like a little bit like a piece of like unique carved Indian furniture. You know what I mean? And this is your last option. But if you don't want to paint, do the liquid starch and fabric trick. You take liquid starch and fabric, thrift an old king-size bed sheet in a cool funky pattern, wet it, and then you can just stick it onto it, let it dry, and then like trim off the edges. You could also use that same technique to like wallpaper the back of the bookcase with a fun floral print. It sounds messy, but it's so much less hassle than painting. And if you don't like it, guess what? You can strip it off. It's fine. I'm gonna link a little Pinterest mood board below of all the like cool Alexa and Billy bookcase hacks I see that I think you could really knock out of the park. So that is the end of today's Q&A. I hope this was helpful. I hope you got some inspiration. If you guys have your own answers to these questions, feel free to comment them below. I would like to do these more regularly because I think it's very fun to have these conversations, to explore new challenges, and share all of our knowledge together. So if you like DIY and decor stuff, I have a monthly newsletter. You can sign up below. I send out a monthly roundup of fun inspiration, project ideas, tips, fun things like that. So I hope you guys have a good week, and I hope that your DIY projects have 0 moments of hell.